Hey folks, walk with me. Well, Jimmy Carter lasted 100 years, but he also lasted a long time. I remember hearing, seems like forever ago, that he was in hospice with his wife and thinking like, okay, you hear people go into hospice and, you know, they're days away, weeks away. And he was months and months and months and months. So it was quite a tremendous push through to the end there. But, you know, I think he gets a lot of flack. He was a one-term president. And, you know, is seen as sort of a bit of a Pollyannish, silly peanut farmer. But I think a couple of things come to mind when I think about the reality of a peanut farmer becoming, I think it was the 39th president of the US, and then, doing his work for Habitat for Humanity, I think was where he was so engaged, and like continuing to swing hammers and build houses for decades and decades after he left office. You know, a person with that type of heart and that mindset, you know, he's quoted, I'm going to butcher this a bit, but he has a great quote out there, something about like, you know, society being defined by how they treat their weakest and most helpless members of that society. And I think, you know, we're at a juncture here in the US where we just saw an uptick in homelessness, which everyone was already saying was out of control, right? It's an uptick of 18%. It's a huge uptick. And I don't think it really matters in this context of the uptick whether or not it's just generally undercounted, the number of people who are homeless, because the undercount still going up by 18% is probably reflective of the true number, whatever that is, you know, having a similar type of climb. And so that's how we treat currently our most helpless and vulnerable people in our society. And so what that says about us is everything you need to know. And I think he's really, really accurate in that. It doesn't say good things. It certainly, I don't know how people square this with this concept of being a Christian nation, which I'm not saying that I agree that that's the case or should be the case, but I don't understand how people square that in their head. I understand how they square it in their head if they're working to try to alleviate that suffering and help people. But if they don't, and they just sort of like post about it on Facebook and Instagram and whatever, about being a Christian, right? Or it's just handy to have in their back pocket when abortion comes up or something like that. I don't know how they square it. But I think that him saying that is very, very true. And I think him having the heart that led him to have held the highest elected office in the nation and then continue to do his work for the world and for society and for the most helpless. And the fact that he wasn't given a second term, right? Of all people who, you know, usually a president is elected to 2 terms. There's stats out there that you can easily look up. And the fact that he was pushed out and he was probably, you know, one of the noblest in intention people to ever hold that office. That also says a lot. But, you know, additionally, the fact that he was a peanut farmer and this concept that we're supposed to have in the US where middle class is sort of the dominant force and factor, right? That's upheld above everything else. That the American dream, as I understand it, as I have always understood it, is not that everyone can get rich or anyone can get rich or whatever. It's that people can have a dignified life, that they can work a normal job and have a solid standard of living. And that they can do that in a way that they then have time to explore opportunities, to be creative, to spend time with their family, and, you know, have that as the central nucleus of it all. You know, putting a peanut farmer in that elected position is a tremendous accomplishment. Ultimately, we hit the eject button on that 4 years later, and in many ways, it's been a very quick, fast ride downhill from there. Downhill not meaning easy, downhill meaning like, you know, just lackluster ability to take these tremendous GDP growth numbers, tremendous wealth that we have, and have it reflected in that expression of dignified worker experience, contributions to society, not being incessantly lied to and, you know, gaslit, and not have the wealth concentration sit in the hands of just a select, you know, a single digit number of folks out of 300 and something million. It's we've slipped very far, and I don't know if we can get back to anything resembling his spirit, but, you know, much like anyone else who you look to as sort of an icon for reasons that they stood out so much, either in their own time or after the fact, because they were such an enigma. I'm glad that he was here and he did what he did for so long, so that we have someone to point to. We have a model. Someone modeled it for us, right? And those things are always easier to gravitate to, but I mean, we're very far gone at this point. And I didn't want this video to be as depressing sounding as it is, but this is, you know, I write down a topic and then whatever comes out of my mouth comes out of my mouth. It is a true and honest reflection of, you know, whatever it is that I'm thinking at the moment. Yeah, so thank you, late great Jimmy Carter, for everything you did, for showing us what you tried to show us. And some of us hope to be able to expand that and live through that for many, many decades to come, and hope that some good comes of it. All right, folks. Well, if you walked or just watched this far, I really appreciate it. And as always, I will see you in the next video.